Good afternoon, everyone. We are here at Andreas. I want to wish everybody a happy Sunday afternoon. We've got a few things that I thought we'd talk about today on the live stream. Just want to get everybody in here, and then, of course, we will start taking questions. But today, I thought we'd go over the cylinder heads. A guy came in wanting me to take a look at his, and I thought, well, that'd be a great idea for a live stream since I happen to have a few heads laying around that have been rebuilt, and just go over some of the stuff on them and some things to look for. Right, so I'm getting a lot of text messages right now. Anyway, Didier says, hi Brent, well good afternoon. Like I said, we'll be talking about cylinder heads today. We have the cylinder head off this car and we got it all cleaned up. It's getting ready to go back on, but before I did that, I thought that we'd take a look at everything. Again, just to give you some idea of what to look for. I've already made a video a few years ago on how to rebuild the cylinder head at home and how to make sure that it's flat, how to pull the valves out, how to lap them. But today we're just going to take an overall view of them. So I've got an early, late, and a turbo head here, and just thought it'd be interesting for you guys. So turn the camera down here and you can see them all. So this is early. You're gonna find these in pretty much all early 944s. So European cars would be 82, US spec will be 83 to 85. Well, actually these go all the way to 86. These are 87 and 88 heads for the naturally aspirated. And then we have a turbo head here. And of course, I've got an 89 turbo head as well that's rebuilt, and I'm going to show you guys that later if you're interested. But for the most part, it's the same head. There is a difference here with the check valve, but this would be fine for now. I just want to give you an overall look at these heads and how to identify them. Of course, you can always do it using the part number, but there's some easier ways here. So I'm going to start down here with the early cylinder head. And I say early even though these went to 1986, just because that's just the way we're used to talking around here. Typically, most of the parts changed after 85 and a half, but these cylinder heads sort of hung around till about 86. So you can see the part number there. I'm gonna try and flip this over. It's kind of heavy with one hand while holding the phone, but I also don't want to get some stuff caught up underneath here. I brought some bolts with me, but so these bolts will come into play later, but right now they're getting in the way. All right, I'm gonna set them over here to the side. So this is the earlier cylinder head, and it's easily identified by this sort of triangular shape here. Right here at the spark plugs. And I was going to show you guys how to check the flatness of the head, but I've already done that in one video and I couldn't find my flat or straight edge when I was getting ready to start this, so we're just going to roll with it. And if you have any questions, I'll see if I can dig it out. But and I'll also show you what to look for as far as cylinder heads go. You can see that this one has been machined flat and looks really good, and there is a limit on that, which you can just look up. It's your machine shop should know these numbers, but you can see we had plenty of room here to just take a little bit of the surface off, as you can tell by this ridge here. But this is how the early cylinder heads look. And then I'll flip this one over here. You can see it's had some work done here. It should look more like this, but you can see that's long gone. It's almost flat there, but that's fine. So a lot of times I just send these over and have them all built. So we have some spares laying around. We don't have to wait for them to be rebuilt. We just do them all at one time. So this is the 87 and 88, because after that they went to the 2.7 liter engine, and those have larger valves. I don't have one of those here. Rarely see them come up. A lot of guys like to put them on their 3 liter blocks and make turbo engines out of them. But I have seen a few of them, and the main difference, like I said, the valves are a little bit bigger, the combustion ports are bigger, and this is about half the size here, but you get the idea. This is the 87 and 88 head, and it can be easily identified by having more of a square shape here next to the spark plug holes compared to this triangular shape here. And you can also see that they brought the edges up closer to the valves, where this is further out. So again, this has been machined a little bit. Looks pretty good. If you have like a little pitting in there, that's okay. But I'll show you a head that we actually had to, we skipped on. So we have so many heads that there's really no point in trying to fix this. So as you can see, there's just too much pitting here on this head. Now you can have them weld this up, and then they can cut it down and make it flat again. But I have so many of these heads, it's not even worth the effort to do that. So we decided that we were going to stop. We noticed all this pitting and just decided against trying to rebuild this head. But if you have something like that, you may just want to go ahead and find another head. But other than that, it's a really nice head. And again, you can identify that it is an early head by this combustion chamber here. The later heads are a little harder to get, so had it been a later head, I would probably go ahead and just have it welded up, because I like to have these. But moving over to the turbo head now. Now there are a little bit of differences between turbo heads, but it's not really worth getting into. But you can see that all the turbo heads start with the 951 part number. And again, we got a little bit of pitting here, but it's nowhere near as bad as the pitting on that head. Again, it has the same chambers as the later head. Same shape. These do have, if I can roll it over here, one-handed. Nah, I might be better to go this way with it. I don't want to do off the cardboard and ruin a surface, but they have ceramic exhausts. So this was actually put into the casting before they poured the mold. And I'll hear people ask if it's a good idea to put a turbo head on an NA, and it's perfectly fine, but a little bit overkill. This ceramic does have the tendency to break up and get into turbos. We've seen that before. And it will absolutely destroy the turbo. Now, it won't destroy anything if you've got a naturally aspirated engine. Of course, it'll just get stuck in the catalytic converter. But you can see where this is starting to pit a little bit here and there, but overall, these are still in good shape. Now, one thing about putting a turbo head on a naturally aspirated engine is going to be this. You can see, if you look down, this exhaust port for a naturally aspirated engine. It's just aluminum, where this has the ceramic in there. And if you take your caliper here and you run it in here, you can see that the ports on the turbo are a little bit smaller, maybe 2 or 3 millimeters smaller. This will not go in there. This will go right in here. And they're the same size on the early, but when you go to the turbo, just a little bit smaller. These also have stiffer springs, so when I take them to the machine shop, I have to make sure that they keep all this together. You know, a lot of times I'll take them 5 or 6 heads, and I gotta remind them to keep all the valves and all the springs straight, because these do have sodium-filled valves, and they gotta make sure that they put those right back in the head that they came out of. Yeah, that's a quick look at the heads and the differences between them. Let me know if you have any questions. But as far as the intake ports, they're exactly the same. No real difference there between them. It's just the exhaust ports on the turbo that have those ceramic ports on them. The naturally aspirated exhaust gaskets look like this, and you always turn them so the text is facing you. The other side doesn't have anything on it. And it's the same thing with the intake gaskets. You always want the text towards you, but there is one exception, and that is for cylinder 1 here. I'll use this one, it's a little bit easier to see. If you put them on with the text out, you're gonna see faintly see the text on that one. I didn't get a good batch of these this time. Usually that text is really clear. So you can see here, if you put it on the way you're gonna put it on the rest of the cylinders here, it kind of partially covers the injector. So you flip this one upside down. Usually the text on these things are way more prominent, but you can see they're kind of faded. These are fresh out of the box too, so anyway, you get the idea. I always want the text towards you, except on number 1, where you'll flip that one around. All right, and this is why I brought these bolts over. These are intake bolts. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this with one hand. I did bring the tripod over, but it's a little... So Jack says, are those the only gaskets? No, the turbo gaskets are the metal ones that you're seeing. So I hope that explains that. I actually think I have some around here, and I wanted to bring them in. I just didn't have time to find them. But yeah, if you're seeing those are for the turbo. So I was trying to thread this in here, so that way you guys can just see a little bit better what I'm doing. If I put it on the tripod, then it'll be too far away for you guys to really see what I'm doing here. But yeah, you can see how that lined up perfectly now. So with the metal gaskets, if you have them, like I said, I think I have some around here, but I don't want to go digging around while I'm live to do all that. But so yeah, upside down, it's gonna look like that. And then the rest of these will go on with the text up. And going back to the turbo gaskets, if you do see those and you have a turbo and you got to put those on, you're going to put them with the metal side out. All right, guys, you got any more questions? Might be a quick show today, but what's everybody working on? Didn't expect to get through it in about 17 minutes. Oh, we got a few questions coming in now. Let me turn this around. Sure you don't want to stare at the heads for 40 minutes. Okay, so looking at options for seat covers. So the best thing you can do is just order new seats. We actually found a website that sells real leather seats. I have to look up what that is, but just Google around. There's a place that makes leather seats, and so far I really like them. They're not really any more expensive than getting the vinyl seats if you go to some of these websites. Jack says, can you talk about head pressures? What do you want to know? I mean, basically all I'll do is tell you the different compression ratios, but that also has some piston, depends on the pistons as well. So with the turbo, you're going to be 8-to-1. With the later head, as I showed, the combustion chamber is tightened up a little bit around the valves, and that gives you like 0.2, so that brings you up to 9.7 to 1, and then you have 9.5 with the early heads from 82 Europe, 83 US to 86. So not very much, you know. Of course, if you have a European car, you're going to have 10.6 compression because the pistons are different. But if you want to talk about the compression in general, I see them all over the place. For an 87 engine, you might see 140 psi when you're doing a compression test. 88 engine, you're probably going to see closer to like 160, 170. Of course, they have different pistons, so. Subliminal says, do you know an NC that does zinc plating? I'm down in Wilmington and there's no one local. Yeah, over in the Charlotte area, we have a place that does ours. Industrial electroplating out of Gastonia. Jack says, how do you test them and what should they be? So, I mean, the cylinder pressure is going to basically, I mean, you may want to take it to a machine shop to make sure that they pressure test everything. But here, we send them to the machine shop to have them pressure tested for coolant leaks and make sure that nothing's leaking through those pittings. But other than that, we just, you know, you do a leak down or a compression test on them. But it's going to vary wildly. As long as you've got at least 120 psi, your car should run. But we see them all over the place. Different things are going to cause, you know, you could have a bad alternator or not open the throttle while you're doing the compression test. If you do everything with a warm engine, throttle body open, you should be in the 140 psi range pretty much. But 88 European 924S. This 175, is that too high? No, that's about right. For the European and the US 924S is about the same. If you're doing it on a warm engine and you get the throttle open, that's about right. I said about 170. He's saying 175. Yeah, that's about right. Thinking about going in today. Cruises. Do you have any parts list do you suggest in the car? So if you're going on a cruise, just make sure you got your belts done, everything. Always bring some extra accessory belts, bring some extra DME relays. If you got a later car that's 85 and later, bring an extra fan relay. those things just go out. Spare tire, you know, the drill. Uh, Nothing too crazy, but I do find that bringing an extra fan relay with you with the late car especially will bail you out in some situations. Bring some jumper wires, um, the 2 and the 3, so that way you can jump the DME if even your spare DME goes out. And then sometimes you may want to jump the fan relays. Any help with this overheating issue? The fans come on while the car is setting, but once I take it out for a drive, it don't seem to work. Huh, that's interesting. So while you're driving, what's the temperature like? Didier says, yeah, he did the compression wide open throttle. Yeah, that's very good compression for 924S. 140 range for the 951. Yeah, 140 range for the 944 turbo is about right. They have 8-to-1 compression, so theirs is a little bit lower. So trying to go through and like go over every single one of them, I would say as long as you're in the 140 to 170-ish range in your cars, you're typically pretty good at, and it may identify some things, but I had some of the best driving cars that were in the 140 range, and but turbos are typically around the 140 psi. Jack says my turbo oil cooler line is leaking. Have you ever made one? Always bought them new, the OEMs. Yeah, you can have a speed shop make them, or if you have a hydraulic place, they can make you one. Just go up to these guys. The last guy that I had make one of the lines for a turbo, it was a speed shop, and all they do is make them custom for everything all day. So it cost me maybe a couple $100. So anytime you do a compression test, it should always be on a warm engine with a wide open throttle. You want to get the everything sealed up real nice from the heat. Gauge is showing the middle point, but then it goes up to the orange mark once I get into traffic and stoplights. If the fans aren't coming on, I would try another fan relay. So the other day we just had a guy come in and he called me and said that his fans weren't working and the car was overheating, and luckily it was just a fan relay. So those later fan relays, they have like microcontrollers in them and stuff, and they sometimes just do whatever they want. So it's going to look like this, and if you open it up, there's like circuit board in there, and it decides whether it wants to run on high or low or whatever. The early cars just had 2 relays in there, and when the car is off, it'll turn one fan on and let it run, but it goes through a resistor. Same thing with the later cars to some degree, but the microcontroller will change or decide on its own whether it wants the fans at high or low speed. So sometimes that just goes out, and it seems kind of strange that it'll run when it's off, but it doesn't when it's high. And not always, but most of the time when the thermo fan switch goes out in these cars, the fan will stay on all the time. Sometimes it doesn't, but they try and fail that way. So if it was running constantly to the point where your battery is going dead, I would think it's an issue with that. But if it's just not deciding to run, it may be something where the fans are running on low when the car's parked, but when it needs high, the high fans aren't cutting on, but it thinks the high fans are cutting on, and then it's just letting the car overheat. Could be something weird like that. You don't really have that issue with the early cars because it's literally just 2 relays, one for each fan. and anytime it needs a fan, it's just going to cut them on. But with the later stuff, you got all this other stuff going on with it that it just, yeah, it could be that it's running on low, and then when it tries to switch into high because it sees the engine overheating, it just isn't doing it. So just try that and see how that goes. Awesome. Yeah, a lot of people like to go to the solid state relays as well. So there's a guy that makes solid state relays. I think they're a little cheaper because I know these can be around 200 bucks ish. But always keep if you have a later car, keep these on hand. Luckily, the guy that called me, I was able to show him a picture of how to jump the fans on high, and he had to go and catch a flight like couple hours away. I think he had to drive like 4 hours, and luckily he was sitting on the side of the road. I said, here, just grab some wires, stick them in these ports, and he made it. Someone says, thanks, I just had a lot of work done, including a new head gasket because the head was broken where one of the metal exhaust flanges bolted in. Before all the work, compression was in the 135 to 140 range. Awesome. Yeah, that's about right. So it looks like everything. You got a way lower compression with a turbo engine, so it's pretty normal. So it sounds like it was in the right place to begin with. He said the leak down showed 6%. Yeah. Focus 9 Tech with diagnostics in the solid state is around $100 and recommended, Subliminal said. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. If it's $100, get 2 and just keep them around. Especially with these old cars, it does not hurt to have a lot of extra relays. All right, guys, we are at the 30-minute mark. Robert says, how do you tighten the oil filler tube bolt on a turbo? I can't get enough room to swing a wrench or a socket. The oil filler tube, are you talking about the one right up here at the top, the AOS? Or the oil filler neck? Or the oil filler tube bolt on the turbo? Or are you talking, oh, if you're talking about the bracket that attaches to the intake. This is the bracket that attaches to the intake. Oh yeah, you got to take the whole turbo out and stuff to get in there. If you're trying to replace the air oil separator seals, unfortunately, you got to pull the whole turbo out to get into that bracket, because once you get that off and that heat shield, it pretty much requires removing the turbo. It's not a fun job. So that you'll see that, as you can tell, the turbo sits right up against it. So once you get one bolt out, I think you can get one out. I think then you're just going to find that there's nothing that can get in there. And if you could, it's just going to be stopped by the downpipe. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it an early day, and appreciate all the questions. I hope you guys had fun. I'm going to take lunch and then get back here and work on some of these cars. Have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully, we'll do something else fun like we did today with the cylinder heads. And we'll see you soon.